and welcome to God Hour Live. It's been a little while since any content has been uploaded to the channel here, but it is what it is. Work is tough when nobody comes to work at all, like in American society. uh, on the other hand, you get to serve the Lord when you go to work, uh, if that's the way you choose to work. Uh, but it can take a huge physical toll on you, uh, causing you to miss a lot of sleep, causing you to fall behind in day-to-day maintenance, uh, particularly if you're going through this life alone, in the sense that, you know, you don't have anybody at home helping you take care of the home, and so forth and so forth. um, so I haven't had a lot of time to edit and publicly put my God hour online every day. Uh, and I apologize if that's something that anybody's been looking for. But anyway, let's jump into God Hour Live. And as always, we're going to start with a little bit of scripture, a chapter, just one chapter today, because there's some other stuff I'd really like to talk about. And I'm kind of reluctant to do it on YouTube platform. Uh, so as you see in the topic, censorship, propaganda, these are things that are very real, but may be surprised to know that I'm not totally against censorship. Uh, but I do believe propaganda, it's a slippery slope. You can use the Bible as propaganda. Hello. Good morning, y'all. How are you doing? Hope all are well. Do y'all mind if I jump into Acts chapter 22 and see what we can decipher out of it? I welcome your feedback. You're welcome to do that if you want to. I'm not soliciting. Uh, that brings up a whole nother concept or topic. I've been refusing donations to God Hour on the grounds that it's supposed to be a totally voluntary service. But my pastor and many other people have said, stop refusing people that want to bless you. You're only harming them. So, in that vein, I guess I can't, in good conscience, reject donations. It is, you are more blessed to give than to receive. And in that respect, yeah, it would be. I've come to the realization that it's wrong to deny donations. But in any case, it is important that we first address Scripture, uh, and then get into the thought experiments, philosophical debates, and things of that nature. So Acts 22 starts off right after Acts 21. Who would have thought? But Paul, having been seized and asked to basically account for himself, is speaking to the people, and I read strictly from the King James Version. So forgive the dry tone that it takes. Verse 1. Men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense which I make now unto you. And when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. And he saith, I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God, as ye all are to this day. And I persecuted this way unto the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women. Now, he's talking about persecuting Christians and all, to death. He's murdered or had many Christians killed. Yeah, this is that same Paul, but he was known as Saul. Anyway, I digress. Let's keep going. Verse 5. As also the high priest doth bear me witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom also I received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem, Christians, for to be punished. And it came to pass that, as I made my journey and was come nigh unto Damascus about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me. And I fell unto the ground, and heard a voice saying unto me, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And those are the words in red, i.e., the words of Jesus. And I answered, resumes Paul, Who art thou, Lord? And he said unto me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. And they that were with me saw indeed the light, and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. And I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said unto me, Arise, and go into Damascus, and there it shall be told thee of all things which are appointed for thee to do. And when I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of them that were with me, I came into Damascus. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all, already lost my place by glancing at chat. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all the Jews which dwelt there, came unto me and stood and said unto me, Brother Saul, receive thy sight. And the same hour I looked up upon him. And he said, The God of our fathers hath chosen thee, that thou shouldest know his will, and see that just one, and shouldest hear the word of his mouth. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. Now, if you're not aware, Jesus had already been crucified at this point. And this is Christ coming to him after being crucified. So, that's pretty significant, because Saul did not believe. But now he has no option but to believe. It's right there, the Lord speaking to him. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. Verse 16. And now why tarriest thou? Arise and be baptized, and wash away thy sins, calling on the name of the Lord. And that's significant too, because of all the Christians this guy has been responsible for imprisoning and murdering, probably very painfully and torturously. Uh, even those sins are washed away. And it came to pass that when I was come again into Jerusalem, even while I prayed in the temple, I was in a trance, and saw him saying unto me, Make haste, and get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they will not receive thy testimony concerning me. And I said, Lord, they know that I imprisoned and beat in every synagogue them that believed on thee. And when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, which we talked about earlier in Acts, all this really we talked about earlier in Acts, I also was standing by and consenting unto his death, and kept the raiment of them that slew him. And he said unto me, Depart, for I'll send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. And they gave him audience unto this word, and then lifted up their voices and said, Away with such a fellow from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. And as they cried out and cast off their clothes, and threw dust into the air, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle, and bade that he should be examined by scourging. Examined by scourging. Let's analyze or examine him by whipping the crap out of him. That's how interrogations worked in that time, apparently. That he might know wherefore, why, they cried so against him. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, Is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, Take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, Tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, Yea. And the chief captain answered, With a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, But I was freeborn. Then straightway they departed from him which should have examined him. That examine word, I'm putting a lot of dripping sarcasm on. And the chief captain also was afraid, after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. No, this next little last verse here is captioned before the Sanhedrin. On the morrow, because he would have known the certainty before he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his bands, and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. That's a real short chapter. That's all of Acts 22, and you know, I hesitate to do another chapter because when you're listening to King James being read, it can be boring. It can put you to sleep, as I did many times in church. um, so I'll spare you that. But let's jump into the chat. And I'm doing well, Colton. Thank you. I hope you are as well. Iconic, good morning. I'm just going to have to go FJDJ. Even if you're joking, I appreciate the idea of you sending me money. And Clicks Pro YT, good morning. And I think that covers everybody in the chat here. I don't know if any of y'all got our short, but I mentioned that I was skeptical of the offered verse of the day from a little app I use to suggest a verse every day. And it just seemed like it was promoting America. It seemed like it was aimed at American audiences in English, and it seemed like it was telling us to support the uh, support Israel in the war over there. It just seemed propagandist, and led me to realize, maybe not for the first time, but even the Bible can be used to manipulate and cause evil or violence uh, without context. And that's the problem, is if you take a single verse without any kind of like context above, before and after it may sound totally misleading. Uh, I mean, it does say, like, here's just an example. Everybody's aware that in the Bible it says, thou shalt not kill. Well, does that mean never? Uh, because it also says in the Bible, there's plenty of things people should be killed for doing. And it also talks of, not murder, but killing in war. Uh, and how, I mean, people are killing left and right, despite a lot of them being religious people. Let's take Saul, for example. Uh, he's definitely a Jew, definitely believing in the scripture that the Jews were using, should be the Torah. Uh, which is to say the Old Testament, pretty much. Uh, so he'd been told not to kill, but yet he's also killing because he's a military man, and so on and so on. Uh, but I also wanted to touch upon. I'm doing well, Colton. Finally have like 2 or 3 hours to kill before work, and get to spend it contributing to the channel. Uh, but now censorship. That's another controversial topic. And in my younger years, I would have said censorship in all forms are is wrong. I mean, you should be able to have all the information and make of it what you will. But I've come to realize that having all of the information is not only not the Christian way. We're not given to understand the mind of the Lord uh, in its entirety. We're not given to understand the intricacies of foreign policy. Um, Obviously, top secret military stuff. We need to have that censored, um, so our enemies don't see it and use it against us. We also don't want to cause a panic in our population, because people are going to abuse that. Human nature is to take advantage of bad situations for personal gain. Price gouging in the retail business, for example. If everybody's panicking that we're going to run out of toilet paper and such, we've all seen the stuff on the news where people are looting uh, Walmarts and such, and shopkeepers raising the prices 10 times what they were. And things like that. Uh, we all saw that with COVID. Um, we've seen it several times recently, just being warned or scared or whatever, wanting to be prepared. So, wanting to overstock on ammunition, essentials, food, water, shops being completely emptied of these things by one customer, uh, these things being stolen left and right, and causing neighbors to no longer trust each other. And as someone from rural Alabama, we do have a high trust society. You know, many people still leave their doors unlocked. Um, it's just not a very high crime area, uh, at least in the sense of random crime. I mean, of course, there's drugs like anywhere else. Um, there is shoplifting. As someone in the retail industry, I can certainly attest to that. Mm, probably $200 to $400 of merchandise gets stolen from my store every week. And that's just the stuff that I find and can account for, like empty packages and stuff like that. And for such a small little community, it's obscenely high, but I'm sure it's not out of proportion to anywhere else. The thing is, I know these people that are stealing. I see them every day. They don't know that I know that it's them, but I'm not an idiot. Well, that might be controversial, but I could put two and two together. Someone walks in a store, someone goes down one aisle, picks up this item, goes to this next aisle, leaves the store. I find the package empty that they were holding, or the exact same product. Circumstantial evidence, I can't, you know, say without, you know, conclusive evidence that you now can't shop here because you've done this. Unless I happen to have the camera footage, in which case, yeah, I go through all the proper channels and filing a police report and usually giving them an option to pay. Uh, let bygones be got bygones. You got caught, we're not going to, prosecute. Just pay for it. Don't do it again. Or we will take it to the courts. And it's sad that we have to do that because these people aren't stealing to feed their family. They don't need, you know, $20 to $40 worth of air fresheners to feed their family. Someone, and I have had someone take a couple eggs uh, out of a carton. That I don't care. I'd prefer they ask me for the eggs, and I'd gladly give them a dozen eggs. Um, they don't have to steal it. And that's kind of the point. In America, nobody has to shoplift. We have, you know, safety nets set up for that kind of stuff. We've got churches, food banks, plenty of charities, EBT, uh, and just in general, at least around here, uh, people that are happy to buy somebody some groceries if they need them or share their own with them. If nothing else, bring them a plate of food. I have customers bring me plates of food to work all the time because I'm not rich by any means. And nothing brightens up a long day at work than somebody bringing you some homemade, fried chicken, collard greens, butter beans, cornbread, maybe mashed potatoes if you're lucky. I mean, doesn't get much better than that. 'Cause frankly, I don't have time or the ability to cook a big old meal like that just for myself. And the leftovers would spoil, it would all go to waste. But I digress. Um, so, what else is going on? Um, I'm leaving that for anybody to up something for discussion. And there is no judgment here. I'm not in any position to judge anybody. My sins probably outweigh most people's sins in my past. Mm. But lo and behold, I grew up a little bit, just a little bit. And it started to make sense. I used to be a rebel, or I thought I was. And I explored all the concepts of mind expansion, consciousness exploration, all of that stuff, which is to say, drugs, uh, especially hallucinogens. And I was a big, huge pothead, but that was not where it stopped by any means. Uh, but I got away from that stuff, thankfully, uh, to the point where I can't even smoke pot. It just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I don't like it, which is good. But I used to be a firm supporter that, yeah, you can smoke pot 24/7 and be a productive part of society. And uh, I don't, I don't believe that anymore. I don't disagree with people smoking pot by any means. If it's legal, that's certainly a good justification. If you're in a comfortable and safe environment where you're not needed to have a quick response time or whatever professional vibe about you, and yeah, sure, unwind. Uh, if your state's laws or your country's laws are pretty much that marijuana is equal to alcohol, if you don't like alcohol but prefer pot, go ahead. Or if you're prescribed pot and need it for medicinal benefits, it certainly has those. And I believe the same thing of ketamine. Uh, Even some of the psilocybin studies I've been reading about, I agree with. That those things have the potential to not only heal mental traumas, but even heal addiction. Uh, so I think that's probably the most little controversial thing I've said. So I'm not going to like drive the point home about how horrible of a person I've been or have been. Just want to reiterate that anybody should and can feel comfortable in here. If you want to ask a question for discussion, no topics are off limit. Um, you don't need to be Christian to join this forum or platform. In fact, the idea is that more agnostics or Christian curious or what have you will join this and see that there is a way uh, that some Christians practice their Christianity differently than the stereotypical Christian closed group. Like it's almost like a high school clique where if you're not Christian, we don't want you type feeling, or if you do sin, then you are not welcome here. And I felt that at many churches, and it gives Christianity a bad name. And as I've mentioned, not on God Hour, I don't think, but well, yeah, I did a special on God Hour too about why Christians are hated, and it's that judgmental tone you see from the majority of the Christian community, uh, with illogical uh, responses to someone whose religion outdates Christianity by thousands of years. You can't point at someone like that and say, "You are wrong. I am right." And it's just not the way to appeal to people. I mean, first of all, let them see you not as a religion, but as a person. And then if they ask, you say, "Well, I'm a Christian. This is what I believe Christians should do. They should help people. They should, take time out of their life for other people, regardless if they share religion or not." And I mean, the concept of Christianity is based on love, uh, that God is love, our creator. And any religion that believes in a high, ultimate God, it's pretty safe to say that that's the same God. Uh, Now, that's may not be true for, like, I don't know if anybody actually believes in the Greek pantheon of Zeus being the king of the gods and all that, but certainly Greek mythology is fascinating, and but I've never known anybody to actually, you know, be, I don't know what you would call that. Uh, it's always been a mythology, i.e., false or fictional, more like parable type, fables, like Aesop's fables, if anybody remembers those. In any case, I hate to keep falling back on how I've been too busy. Like, I feel like I'm just making excuses for not posting much lately, but um, just bear with me. We're losing employees at work, requiring us all, well, the few that still work there, to uh, put in many extra hours and do the job of two people in the time that one person, you know, double our workload for the same pay, basically. Uh, but that's okay too. In fact, I'm fortunate to be able to do it at all. And if you know anything of my own personal testimony, it was doubtful that I would ever be able to work again, if even walk again. Uh, but God is very merciful, and it gives me great pleasure to say that I can take care of myself and go to work almost every day. I do usually get 1 day a week off because my boss, fortunately, understands that I'm a Christian and I believe in a day of rest. It's usually not Sunday because that's one of our busiest days, but I get that day of rest for reflection, relaxation. I'm fortunate in that regard. So, also, you might have mentioned I had been stabbed, not by anybody else. I went ahead and stabbed myself. Just, you know, I joke about it because I just wanted to make sure that my blood was still red and all that. But I finally removed the stitches. Since I don't know if we have a viewer, this ought to do the trick. Anyway, let's see if we can get a decent view of it. That was a pretty bad cut. 5 stitches. Yuck. Pretty gross stuff, huh? Uh, but as I mentioned earlier, that was also a time that God showed how impeccable his timing is. All things in his own time, but often his own time is exactly when we need him. And it was right when I opened my hand and was bleeding profusely, uh, to the point of severing a vein where the blood was pulsing out. Not arterial, bright blood, but dark, bluish, venous blood with the diastolic blood pressure uh, behind it, pulsing out slowly there. Excuse me. Mm. And it was at that exact time that my neighbor called and asked if I needed anything. Like, and I'm like, yeah, ride to the hospital real quick, please. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I need stitches. Be right there. Uh, just looking through some notes here. Mm. Well, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that still working on the website. And not like I've had a lot of time to be coding, even though I've been using WordPress and I don't really like the freaking WordPress. Uh, so I think I want to just go back to hard coding HTML. Mm. Anyway, Still learning a lot about YouTube Live, little features that they have. All these little buttons here. Scared to hit them all. They might do something horrible. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Uh, but okay. That verse of the day that I omitted, that the algorithm fed me, that made me suspicious. Excuse me. Was from the book of Esther. Um, I'd like to look at it in its full chapter. So it's Esther 4:14. And in that simple verse, it says, "For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed." Actually, they didn't even finish the verse in the algorithm generated verse of the day. It just stopped at enlargement and deliverance rise to the Jews from another place. Now, for if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. That in context, that gives you very little to go on. What is this time? Because the way they represented the verse, it would think at this time, this present time, right now. For if we holdest thy peace, if we do not intervene or send ground troops or so on, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. What is the another place? Uh, Enlargement of the Jews. What exactly do you mean? The Jews are going to multiply, or are they going to become more prominent, more powerful? And deliverance arise. What is the deliverance that it is intending to imply versus the deliverance that uh, the Jews are presumably already expecting from God, from Yahweh, as the Jews would say. Uh, or from another place. Are they implying that the Jews are going to be enlarged and delivered from Satan or by Satan? It leaves an open-ended question. So it's more important that we look at this let's at least go with the paragraph. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, "Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knowest whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" I mean, the book of Esther, this is a great book. I just don't like the way they suggested only this part of one verse to be the verse of the day. It just did not give enough context, and that's why I think we can attribute to discernment that I omitted it from the God Hour Short and instead went to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17, which is the concept of rapture. And to reiterate, rapture does not appear in the Bible. The word rapture is not in the English translation of the Bible. Uh, and many people don't know the definition of the word rapture. They think it simply means the religious version that all the Christians are going to be sucked away magically and disappear one day. Thessalonians describes it as, and even that requires context, because first it says that the dead will be delivered unto the Lord. And let's turn to 1 Thessalonians real quick and look at it, so I'm not just talking out of, verse 16. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. So there you go. That's where rapture comes from. That is the reference to the rapture, which is simply, by Oxford definition, a feeling of intense pleasure or joy or ecstasy, not sexual ecstasy, though I guess that doesn't preclude it from being sexual or erotic, but extreme pleasure. You can find extreme pleasure in many things. Now, to the level of rapturous pleasure, like knowing you're about to spend eternity in paradise, I don't think I could think of anything that trumps that. And sure, the irony of the Bible referencing the trump of God. I'm not that kind of Trump supporter. I did vote for him, but I maintain my own mind and make my own judgments, but not in the sense of judging others. Like my next action, I judge it based on my own analysis, not because Trump told me to or because the other side told me not to. That's not the way to live. And there's one final little topic that may be controversial to some, especially Christians, that I wanted to touch on. And I think I mentioned it before, but God doesn't want us to be his mindless slaves. He wants us to love him as he loves us, just as all parents want their children to love them, I presume, because I'm not a parent, but I have experienced the unconditional love of my own parents before they passed. And my mother particularly endeavored to make sure that I loved her in return. And of course I did. Even more so after she passed. I mean, sure, me and my mother and my father had our little fights and spats, and sometimes even the really harsh words got brought out. Even the physical violence on my dad's behalf. but they were just people. They weren't superhumans. They were capable of failing and making bad decisions. And therefore, I understand now that they weren't really, I shouldn't hold it against them. There's no reason to hate them for little things they've done. And it obviously didn't kill me. I think anything that, yeah, sure, it would have been out of line, certainly in today's society. The type of physical punishment I received, you don't you don't see that this day and age. People called child protective services or whatever, and dad gets put in prison or taken away, and it just no. If I needed correcting, I'd be corrected on the spot, maybe in the jaw. But it's all right. Dad learned from his mistakes, and when he passed, we were on good terms, thankfully. And mother was at, by my side, or I was by her side. And so we went out on very good terms. That's about all I've got to talk about this morning. If anybody has anything, please put it in the chat. I believe I can even invite a video collaboration type thing. No, I think I turned that option off. But that's something I want to explore too. So in that note, 52 and a half minutes, and along with the short, that will conclude God Hour for today. I expect to be doing a Sunday edition, as I try to do every Sunday. So, God bless you all. Thank you for your support, everybody that came on out. And y'all have a good day, a safe weekend, and admin at godhour.org should be available if anybody has something private they want to discuss or prayer request or anything like that. And we don't pray on camera on God Hour. I feel like that contradicts scripture. I need to kind of put that in a little generic disclaimer. But that is the way it is. Private prayer is, sessions 101 prayer is still an option for anybody who desires it. If you want, we can do it over the phone. We can do it on, YouTube. Or you can just take my word that I'm praying for you and you submit those prayer requests. In any case, not to rip off Matt Walsh. Godspeed.